Guilty.
Guilty.
She is definitely guilty.
She was a woman who made her living telling stories of love, of passion, of second chances. Her name was Nancy Crampton Brophy, a romance novelist in her 60s who once believed that the power of words could transform lives. Born in Wichita Falls, Texas, Nancy grew up in a world where love was both a dream and a gamble. In her early years, she was drawn to stories, fairy tales that promised happy endings, and later romance novels that painted love as salvation. But reality, as she would come to learn, was far messier. Nancy married young, divorced, then married again. Life wasn't easy. Bills piled up, ambitions went unfulfilled, and beneath the surface of her crafted love stories were scars she rarely showed to the world. And then came Daniel Brophy, a culinary instructor in Portland, Oregon, known for his kindness, his love of teaching, and his almost spiritual connection to food. To Nancy, Daniel was everything she wanted in a partner, steady, reliable, full of quiet strength. Their love story began like one of her books, two souls finding each other in a chaotic world. "Danny," you would say with a smile, "you're my rock." And he, always understated, would answer, "You just keep writing your stories, I'll keep cooking." Together, they built a life. Not perfect, not glamorous, but theirs. Yet as years passed, cracks began to form. The finances never quite stabilized. Nancy's writing brought in modest income, but not enough. Daniel's teaching provided stability, but not abundance. The couple leaned on each other and sometimes resented each other for the weight of a life that felt perpetually fragile. Nancy turned to writing as escape. Her romance novels often blended fantasy with realism, women longing for freedom, men torn between duty and desire, marriages crumbling under the weight of secrets. And in 2011, she wrote something that would one day come back to haunt her. An essay, a blog post, playful, dark, even witty. Its title was How to Murder Your Husband. In it, Nancy laid out the cold, logical reasons one might consider such an unthinkable act. Financial gain, escape from a broken marriage, revenge. At the time, no one thought much of it. It was just Nancy being Nancy, blending satire with shock value. She even joked about it with friends, shrugging off the morbid humor. But years later, when her husband would be found murdered, those words would echo louder than any of her novels. This is the story of a romance author who blurred the line between fiction and reality. The story of a marriage that appeared solid, but hid fractures deep within. And the story of betrayal so shocking, it forced an entire community to question, did she write her own destiny? And before we continue, if stories like this matter to you, stories of betrayal, survival, and truth, take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. These are not just headlines, they are lives forever changed. Because Nancy's words were about to turn from fiction to evidence. To the outside world, Nancy and Daniel were the picture of devotion. He was the gentle chef, adored by his students, remembered for teaching them how to respect not just food, but life itself. She was the writer, living in the world of imagination, often seen scribbling at her desk or reading drafts aloud. Together they smiled at neighborhood gatherings, appeared inseparable at church events, and presented themselves as two people who had mastered the art of marriage. But appearances can be deceiving. Behind closed doors, tension simmered. Financial arguments were the most frequent. The house needed repairs, the bills seemed never-ending, and Daniel's salary, though steady, wasn't enough to build the life Nancy craved. Her writing career had potential, but not enough to break through into true financial independence. Nancy, in her moments of quiet bitterness, sometimes confessed to friends about her frustrations. "I thought writing would save us," she once muttered to a confidant. "But it feels like the world is against me." Daniel, ever pragmatic, often reminded her, "We'll be okay, Nan. We always are." But Nancy was tired of just okay. She wanted more. She poured her emotions into her stories. Her characters, often women trapped in marriages or in need of rescue, reflected her own silent longing. When she wrote about freedom, she meant it. When she wrote about betrayal, she felt it. And when she joked about murder, perhaps it was more than a joke. The essay, How to Murder Your Husband, read like a checklist of motives and methods. She listed insurance money as one of the strongest reasons. She explained that sometimes divorce was too messy, too costly, but death could be simple. It was satire, yes, but to those who later read it, it was chilling foreshadowing. Saturday, June 2nd, 2018. A morning like any other. Daniel Brophy arrived early at the Oregon Culinary Institute, as he often did. The kitchen was his temple, his classroom, his sanctuary. His students adored him. He was more than a teacher. He was a mentor, a guide, a friend. But that morning, everything changed. By 8:30 a.m., Daniel was found lying on the floor of the kitchen, shot twice. His life, quiet, steady, good, ended in an instant. Shockwaves rippled through the community. Students cried. Teachers held each other. No one could fathom who would want to harm a man so universally loved. But detectives are trained to notice details. Nancy's words were inconsistent. Her timeline didn't quite add up, and as they began to peel back the layers of her life, they found something disturbing. A mountain of financial debt, and several life insurance policies taken out on Daniel worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The perfect marriage was crumbling before their eyes. Friends who once saw Nancy as witty and loving now questioned her every word. How could she? Why would she? But whispers grew louder. Maybe the essay wasn't a joke after all. Police uncovered even more. Surveillance footage placed Nancy near the Culinary Institute that morning, despite her claims she had been home. Records showed she had purchased a gun part online, one that matched the weapon used to kill Daniel. Piece by piece, the illusion of innocence fell away. And yet Nancy clung to her role, the grieving wife. She told the press, "Daniel was my everything. My loss is immeasurable." But behind the tears, investigators saw calculation. Her life was unraveling. Friends distanced themselves. Family doubted her. The community whispered. The betrayal wasn't just of Daniel. It was of everyone who had believed in the love story that she had told. The trial became the stage where everything would be exposed. Prosecutors painted her as a woman drowning in debt, desperate for financial relief, and willing to kill the very man who had given her stability. They held up her essay as chilling evidence, fiction turned fact. The jury listened to experts read excerpts aloud. The words she had once written in jest now sounded like a confession.
Her defense argued she was misunderstood, a writer trapped by her own imagination, punished for her creativity. But the evidence was damning. The surveillance, the gun parts, the money motive, the essay, all threads woven into a noose. Daniel's friends and family testified, their voices cracking with emotion. "He loved her," one colleague whispered. "He trusted her." Their heartbreak filled the courtroom with a sorrow that no verdict could erase. The betrayal became unbearable. Nancy had not just killed a man, she had killed the faith of an entire community in love, in loyalty, in trust. After weeks of testimony, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. The woman who once wrote about passion and happily ever afters was now condemned to spend the rest of her life behind bars. In that moment, Nancy's world collapsed. She sat still, eyes wide, face pale, as though the weight of her own story had finally crushed her. Around her, Daniel's loved ones wept, for the man they had lost, and for the cruel betrayal that had stolen him. From her prison cell, Nancy has reflected on the path that brought her here. She admits, in rare moments of honesty, that her marriage was not what she portrayed, that she longed for freedom, for stability, for more than Daniel could give. But what she found, in the end, was emptiness. Betrayal brought her nothing but silence. She thinks of him still. His laugh, his quiet strength, his endless patience. She wonders what her life could have been if she had chosen truth over deception, courage over betrayal. The ghosts of her past haunt her words now as surely as they haunted her essay. And so, Nancy Crampton Brophy becomes more than a headline. She becomes a cautionary tale of love twisted by greed, of fiction colliding with reality, of betrayal that poisons everything it touches. Her story reminds us of the fragile line between truth and lies, between devotion and destruction. It asks a haunting question. How well do we ever know the ones we love? And in the end, justice spoke for Daniel, a man who gave his life to teaching, to loving, to living simply, a man betrayed by the person he trusted most. Truth prevailed, though at a cost, and his community, though shattered, found closure in knowing his story was heard. Because in the end, truth, no matter how painful, is the only path to healing.